good afternoon, and good evening to these gentlemen who are over in the UK. Thank you for joining this edition of the Referee Show here on IronStats.com. I'm your host, Earl Bass, and I'm joined by four assessors, as I said, over in the UK. And basically, we're talking refereeing, we're talking all football refereeing, and anything else that these gentlemen are involved in. But I want to start by first saying again, thank you very much, because I know it's kind of late over there, but it's vital for referees on this side to get a look in as to how things are done over in the UK and see how similar they are, because a lot of people honestly believe that how it's done in their country or how it's done in their region is never done anywhere else, sort of thing. But I've talked to enough people to know that what goes on in Bermuda can also go on in the UK, can also go on in Europe, other places, and so forth. So, Colin, first of all, can you just give us a little background of what your role is now in football?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm the football operations manager at Cambridgeshire Football Association. So I sort of must make sure that all the football in Cambridgeshire, we've got about 1,500 teams, sort of ticks over on a regular basis. So I oversee all the refereeing, I oversee all the observing, I make sure that the leagues run well. And I'm also, for my sins, I'm also the Deputy Chief Executive. So my boss is obviously the Chief Exec. So she deals with all the sort of technical stuff, and I tend to deal with the staff side of the stuff, really. That's how we work together. I also obviously observe on the Football League, which was the Premier League, done a little bit of time on the Premier League, so I've been about a little bit as an observer, but I do sort of all stages from top level down to new referees, really.
Okay. All right. Jeff, welcome. Can you give us a brief
Yeah, welcome everybody. How do I follow that? Yeah, I've been in this game for a long time. Enjoyed playing football, enjoyed being a referee, and even really enjoying the role I do now as an observer out on the local parks and at supply league level at this moment in time. I'm actually going through a development plan that Colin and Paul are actually involved with very shortly. See if I can. I'm good enough to observe at the next level. So I'm also involved with Colin and the FA support team, where we're supporting and developing observers at this moment of time over here. And indeed, we've been linked with you guys over in Bermuda, just only recently training and developing some of your guys via a video link, which seems to be very successful. I can say that some of the reports I've had back from the guys that I was mentoring, they're coming on leaps and bounds. So that's really good. And as I said just before we started the show, we tend to wear many hats. Those guys over in the UK, as well as an observer. I'm secretary of the York Football Association, which involves making fixtures for cup games, gate sponsors, looking after referees, etc. And it doesn't really end there. I'm linked with the county FA, same as Colin. I actually appoint observers to the level 7, 6s and 5s at the county FA, and linked with discipline as well. So, and as it turns out, I'm retired, as I probably you heard a bit early on. But I'm really grateful to people like Colin and Phil Knight and all these guys who sometimes I think, what, another job? But if it hadn't been for those guys, I'm retired, I wouldn't be able to sort of put back into football for the guys that's developing now what I've had out of it. And I really enjoy working with these guys and seeing the benefits of our knowledge and experience is how it's helping, especially so with the Bermuda guys.
Wow, busy fella. Paul, welcome.
Good evening, and thanks for your invite. Well, my main role now is purely on the observing side. I operate right through from part level to intermediate supply and then on to semi-professional. I particularly enjoy working with the younger guys to bring them through, and it's good to stick with them so they've got some continuity in the processes they go through. Recent times I've been doing a bit of work with you guys, trying to assist with Jeff and Phil developing your observing scheme. And hopefully I'll be able to stay with you guys, the ones I've been allocated, to see how they progress and offer little nuggets of wisdom that I've picked up over the years. I mean, I have to blame Colin for me operating at supply level because he did a bit of mentoring with me. So if anything goes wrong, I can blame Colin these days.
Man, that's the guy that said he's the newbie. So
well, I've been observing for 16 years across all levels. I wouldn't like to think how many Colin's been doing.
Good evening, Alan. How are you? Oh, sorry.
As I say, not only do we obviously support referees, we support observers, developing them, but the good thing is we've got a good network and we support each other. So if anything happens, we can bounce things off.
Sure.
Because sometimes things are not as black and white as people believe they are.
So true, yeah.
You can stick 20 observers at a game and they can all see something different.
Yeah.
So sometimes the answers aren't just black and white. There's a bit of grey in the middle. But by having good conversations with people who've got knowledge, you can all be self-developing. And I mean, nowadays as well, the advent of all the videos, some of the things are not so good, but you've got things that you can refer to, and we're reaching now a wider group. And I mean, it's a bit like this meeting this evening.
Sure.
You're reaching groups across the world, and we can all, as you said, see that we're all doing things the same. Slightly different ways. You get the same answer, but it's all about development and coming up with a strong base and then take it forward.
Yeah, definitely. Well, good evening, Alan. Thank you for joining.
Good evening, and good evening to everybody. This is the first time I've met anybody on the call. You say good evening for these guys. I'm actually in California. In America, so it's about 20 to 2 in the afternoon.
Well, good afternoon.
We're all across here, but it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to meet Colin, Paul, and Jeff, as well as you. This is obviously I was invited to come on to here. I have a slightly different role than the guys on here. I'm an absolute nothing but respect for the work that these guys are doing. I'm a former FIFA referee, moved to America in 2015, and in 2018 became Mr. Webb's head of education, evaluation and coaching in the professional referee organization here in America, in North America. And my role is threefold, as I said. The big part, as obviously we'll talk about now, is on the head of evaluation side. And we work in the professional leagues in North America. You guys watch it on the TV in MLS and the leagues below that as well. So I've been assessing for about 8 years now at various levels, and work with about 30 assessors now in MLS to try and develop the officials here. Obviously at a different stage to you guys. In terms of their development, but it's been nothing but a challenge and an enjoyable one. So thanks for the invitation.
Sure. We're also joined by George. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening.
George, can you hear us? Okay. All right.
Good evening.
Well, I had these.
Yeah.
I had these gentlemen just give us a brief overview of what they do. Can you just give us a brief on what your role is and how you play it out?
Yeah, I've been an observer for just over 20 years now, and I've been working in the non-professional area in the UK, and we've dramatically changed the picture over those 20 years to a position now where we have an observer pathway from brand new referees, support of those, right the way up to the Football League. So an observer can progress all the way through now as a pathway separate from his refereeing. So to me, that's one of the big steps that we've taken over in the UK. I'm not sure if I've met Alan. I've also been going over to the Dallas Cup for over 30 years and working with Dave McKee and a few others over there. So I've worked with a lot of the Americans that go to the Dallas Cup as well. So, yeah.
It's nice to meet you, George.
One of the things that I'm pretty sure everyone's had a challenge is numbers when it comes to officiating, numbers when it comes to assessing, numbers when it comes to the things that make football run. Colin, can you give us, because you said that you're vice president and you run 1,500 clubs and so forth, or oversee the running of 1,500 clubs, matches and so forth. So what are the challenges you face just in the county of making sure that matches take place with people that understand the rules, know what they're doing, and are comfortable, and you're comfortable in putting them in a position to officiate a match?
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Earl. It's really difficult. We do have shortages. At the moment, we're not too bad. Part of that is having a good network where you have your sort of courses linked into your training, etc. But we have rules in our leagues that the matches have to be played. The two teams have to agree on a suitable person to referee the game if there is no appointed referee. So that makes sure the games get played. Now, fortunately, we're covering most games. We probably have about between 6 and 20 probably each week that are not covered. So overall, we're doing pretty well. One of the hardest things is actually sort of progressing the younger referees, because guys and girls can start refereeing when they're 14 years old in UK, and they can move into adult football when they become 16. Now, a bit of a strange stat. You would think it'd probably be 18 when they become adults, but they can actually referee adult football at the age of 16. So one of the things we work really hard on is trying to progress these young referees into adult football when they turn 16. And obviously they need a lot of support because they're refereeing like youth football, from sort of like under 7s, under 8s, up to under 16s. And then it's working with them and making sure when they go out, they're confident. So finding them mentors, giving them we've got a what they call like a referee development officer whose sole job is to look after these people and to make sure they enjoy it. We try to coach their parents into how to look after them. So really their parents are their main mentor because they are there at sort of every game they go to. They see everything that happens. And my own daughter started refereeing before she went to university. And I can tell you now, it's very difficult to stand on the touchline as a parent and see some other parents abusing your daughter. You feel like you want to go around and say something. So it's really difficult. You have to be really careful. But you'd be surprised how a majority of these youngsters are resilient. They're given the armory really to deal with it in their training sessions, and that really starts at the bottom. And obviously making sure that they're appointed to the right games is a key thing. So some games you can be pretty confident that they're going to be reasonably easy to referee, if there is ever such thing as an easy game to referee. And there'll be some that you can only send certain people on. So it is a minefield really. And our referee development officer, who I oversee, like I say, his full-time job is to make sure that these people are appointed properly, looked after. They give feedback after games. They have sort of like dial-in sessions where they can ring in on a Monday or a Sunday to him and they discuss what's happened, what they've done, how they could have done it better, etc. So yeah, it is a minefield really, and it is a difficult task, and I would say it's probably not getting easier. At the moment, our discipline in my county has increased, poor discipline. So we're now sort of like looking to relaunch the respect. The FA have a respect program. So we're now looking to relaunch that and ways of how we can actually get to the parents about how they're going to actually control themselves on the touchline and set good examples. So we've got sort of some big meetings coming up with the clubs now about how everybody can buy into this and make the whole environment for the referee better.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Alan, let me jump to you real quick. When you started out officiating, whatever age that was FIFA referee in your plan when first starting out?
Well, I think every referee, whenever they begin to referee, sees the Champions League on the television and wants to be part of that.
Right.
Realistically, no, it wasn't, and I think for me it was getting out and being involved in a game that I probably wasn't very good at playing, and I got the chance. I got as many people say, I got the best seat in the house. You're in between the players. You're in the middle of the game. And the very first time I kind of thought to myself, okay, this is important, is when I first blew that whistle and the player stopped and looked at me. And you're thinking, right, okay, now we're talking. And it just develops from there. And I'm sure Colin, Jeff, George and Paul will agree, once you come off that, it's a bug. You catch the bug. You just want to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And I was a young man. I was 17 when I started, and to answer your original question, no, it wasn't in my hand. It was in my dream, but it wasn't something realistically I thought, this is going to happen, So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Paul, why did you turn to the officiating side of things?
I think in some ways it's a bit like Alan, where I wasn't a very good player. Playing was sporadic, and then I picked up an injury, which meant I couldn't carry on playing football for contact, and also I couldn't get the time from my work, to be honest, to be able to play. But being able to referee allowed me much more freedom. I'm a football fanatic, and I just love all parts of football. I mean, I still go and regularly watch, albeit that it's a bit less at the higher level these days. But as well as that, you develop a great network of friends. So not only being involved in the sport, there's a great social side. And I've made so many friends over the years, which will be lifelong friends, perhaps more so than ones that you've got from your earlier years in life.
Sure.
And I think the football community, particularly on the refereeing side, is a really tight-knit community. And you can all support each other, you can have a laugh. And a lot of people even go on holiday with each other. But it's a wonderful network to be involved in. And yes, it drives you mad at times. And it drives my wife mad at times as well. Well, I mean, she complains more now because she said I used to just throw the kit bag in the corner after a game on a Saturday, but now observing and all aspects of it, it just envelops your life. And like we were talking earlier, I have less and less free time now, but I enjoy it. It's great, and it's great to be able to see people succeed from that as well.
Sure.
I wouldn't change it now.
Great stuff. Jeff, for you, in the capacity that you hold now, what did you think prior to taking up some of these roles and some of these positions was going to be your biggest challenge? What did you think was going to be your biggest challenge?
When I first took up my initial role was an observer coordinator, if you like, and I was had to look after a pool of observers, and I come from York, where I sort of know most people, but then I came into this bigger world where there was people from all over the north of England that to try and get to know, manage, understand their skill level, understand geographically whereabouts in the north of England they lived. So I wouldn't appoint them to a game that was 150 mile away, which only looks maybe a few millimetres on the map. And believe you me, I have made one or two errors in that way a few times. But you learn. I think that one of the hardest challenges as I got on was supporting and developing the observers through change. And in the last few years, we've gone in a very short period of time where an observer would write a report, type it up, post the letter, and he got the report through the post. From then they've gone to emails, and then you'd send an email out, and now we work with the system called MOAS, which is absolutely really good. And some of the older observers who've been doing it for a long time, as Paul said, they really enjoy doing that. My role was trying to develop them without giving them too much to do, without them thinking that there's too much change. So develop them and retain them. And that was a real difficult task at times, because, as I say, some of these guys were just used to writing down and posting to working with these systems. I can say that I wasn't successful in every one of those tasks, but I feel that I did achieve my goal of ensuring the observers that we did retain and develop had lifted the quality of their report writing, if you like, for the betterment of our referees generally.
Oh, okay. Good stuff. George, for you, I heard you say that you have been to some 30 Dallas Cups. One of the things that I've been to 2 of them, one of the things that we know is getting the officials there, but there's a lot of parents, because it's been talked about already, because sometimes if you have an official there that is kind of verbally abused and so forth, how do you manage to make sure that the officials are kind of respected in that regard and are taken care of, in ensuring that they are, I wouldn't say comfortable after the game, but understand that they have support for what they've been able to accomplish?
Yeah, certainly just reflecting on the Dallas Cup, it's a lot easier because you've got armed police going around on bicycles, so that tends to focus the parents' minds.
Right.
But I think it's twofold. One, when a referee has had a particularly, not necessarily a bad game, but he's aware he's made a bad call, and you can see it in his face as he's coming off. The shoulders are slumped, and it's how do you deal with him? You want to, or her, and you want to bolster them. Yes, you want to improve them, but first you've got to get them on track, because at the moment they just feel like throwing all their kit in the kit bag and throwing it out the back door. And we've all been to those sort of games. And so it's how do I make them go out the back door, pick up all their kit, put it in the washing machine and get ready for the next game. Because the bit about improving him doesn't matter, because he isn't going to, or she isn't going to do another game unless I get him to go out the back door. And so to me, that's the important thing. How do I build them up? Forget about development. How do I get that person confident again? With regards to the parents, I've always found the approach to just ask them what the problem is. Oh, he's done that. Well, why do you think he did that? Oh, well, he did. No. He did it because that and that. And you go, oh, I didn't know that. That's why I'm talking to you. So you're also an educator. You may be there as an observer or a coach, or just another official supporting a referee. But we can educate. Yeah, all right, you may talk to somebody and they're not interested at all. You'll get that very, very quickly, and you go, there's no point in continuing this conversation, and you just curtail it. But generally you get a reaction from them because they want to learn, they want to know. Because when they go in the bar afterwards, they know something now, and they can tell their mates, you know why that referee sent my son off? He did it because he did this. And all of a sudden, they've escalated their own position because they're knowledgeable. Right. And I've done that just by a few words, rather than saying, "Oh, they're all crazy. I'm not going anywhere near them." You know.
Right.
So, you know, there is that sort of role, but you can't get to them all, and it doesn't matter whether it's parents or I'm in the boardroom after a game. You know, obviously, when I'm there as an observer, there's nothing I can do. But if I'm there as a guest, or if I've been invited by the club, then if somebody comes up with a strong opinion and I know that they're wrong, perhaps I can educate them. Some of those don't want to know either, you know, in the boardroom, because their opinion's never, ever been challenged because, you know, they're the chairman of the club or they're the secretary. I know what I'm talking about. Well, yeah, you do, but it's rubbish. But how do I tell them it's rubbish and tell them the right way? Educating, and that's what we're all about, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask each of you to answer this question in your own personal way. But what would you consider the most vital thing for football right now to continue, especially on the officiating side? What is most important for you for an official to ensure that the game continues and numbers increase for officiating, if you can understand that? Colin?
Yeah, I would say it's improving the whole environment, really. It's working on gaining more respect for the referees. So it's not sort of 2 teams on a day, it's 3 teams. So the referee is very much part of that. So I think it is the respect side of things, just getting people to understand that the referee is there to enjoy it. In local football, I'm talking about here, goes out, enjoys it. They're entitled to enjoy the game. And the more you can improve that behaviour, the more that will improve everything and make people want to referee, encourage them to referee.
Sure. Jeff?
Yes, very, very similar to what Colin said. The key word there is respect. And just to touch on what George said a little bit about the parents, it's educating these parents, if you like, to understand that some of these referees, they're under 18 years old. So we do in our county affair, we actually highlight with an armband, with a yellow bright armband, to actually say that they're an 18-year-old. But still, it doesn't seem to stop some of them berating and having a pop. So what we need to do is, what Colin says is, keep on banging the drum about respect, especially at the lower end of the game. And where we can, it's a difficult situation, as I say, we've all got so many hats on, volunteers, workers, referees, support these referees. We guarantee, you know, if Colin, George, Paul or I or Alan go and watch some game where there's been some issues the following week, nothing will be said because they'll see somebody from the local FA or the local league. But it's a matter of getting that education out there to retain, and I think that's a key word, retain these young people who have gone into the game because they want to be a referee and stay there. So it's a message that it's to the fore. I know it's to the fore of all county affairs and the FA. Respect is a really key word. It's actually doing it, delivering it. It's a difficult task, but I'm sure we are going in the right place with training, education, when leagues, FAs do follow up with fines, discipline charges, etc. against some of these clubs who cannot control their parents. But the key word is getting the message over. And I'll just tell you a small story. You might think this. My own stepson, he was a 14, 15-year-old referee, and he was just refereeing at academy at York City. And my wife was with me, and I tried to keep a low profile. And there was a couple of adults sort of having a go at the young lad. And Carol said to me, "I'm going over there." No, leave it, you're not. But, you know, a woman with a woman, she went over and she had a chat and she just said, "Excuse me, which is your lad, is he? Where is he?" "Oh, he's number 4. "Where is he?" "Well, my lad is the lad in the black." And he just went stum. And I believe that's the thing with parents watching football. They don't see the young man or the young lady who is the referee is actually a person. They see it, and it's getting that message over. But that certainly worked the trick. That guy that did probably frightened of the wife.
George, what about you?
At all levels, I think it's communication, and no matter how we do it, you know, we've just got to do it better. Sky did a wonderful thing a few years ago before lockdown, where they invited Neville and Jamie Carragher from Liverpool into St George's to see the Premier League referees training. And they spent the day, and they did a lot of work, and they came away with a great respect. Although they've now lost it when you listen to them burbling on the TV, they've forgotten about it. But for a couple of years, it was very effective, and I just think that we ought to do more of that. So the man in black is not just a faceless person, just like Jeff's just said. Because, I mean, you look at it, Michael Oliver, you know, he was on the Premier League, I think, at 24, 25, you know, and he is a wonderful person, you know, but not enough people know him, you know, and him and his wife got death threats following the European game he did, you know, and things like that. You go, that's not right. But again, nobody knows about it, you know, and so whether it's at that level or whether it's the local level, you know, all of it, trying to get the local referee, the young referees, all together in a room, maybe with one of the senior referees, and just sitting around having a chat. But it's getting harder and harder, you know. But that aspect of communication, we've got to do it. We've got to publicise that referees are people, and let's support them as best as we can.
Sure. Paul?
I'm probably going to repeat what Colin and Jeff have said, in respect that, particularly for the younger element and their parents, it's having a system in place where there's total respect. Over here, we have rugby union, and in that sport, the players and spectators have total respect for the officials. Football's at the polar opposite. And I think as well, particularly if you're getting hold of the parents and the youngsters early on, not only is it going to develop their enjoyment for football, but it develops them life skills as well at an early age, which a lot of them don't have. They see how their parents react, and they react in a similar way. I think if we can get the proper processes there, players having respect for referees, the parents do, football's going to be a much, much more enjoyable game, particularly as they progress through youth football. A lot of them, after a while, drop out of youth football. They stop enjoying it. So we want to keep youngsters in the game playing to an older age. We want the referees to stay in the game and not drop out for different reasons. And it's getting everybody to work together. Because, you can go and watch games on the park on a Sunday morning And around this area where I live, there's not a lot of enjoyment now.
Mm.
And you can just hear the way people are talking to each other. You think, do they really want to be involved in this? Why are they here? And I think it's essential that we get proper processes so that people can continue to enjoy the game. Because you're going to have more and more dropouts otherwise. And the beautiful game won't go the way it should be.
Yeah. Alan?
I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, and listen, the four gentlemen that have spoke before me have mentioned, these guys have been around for long enough, and they're very, very sensible in what they're saying here. I picked out a few words, and I've got a couple of my own. They talked about retention. Jeff talked about retention, vitally important. Paul talked about it being enjoyable. Now, let's be honest and let's call a spade, everybody. When a young person gets into refereeing, they're not watching referees on the TV having an easy time of it. They know the job isn't easy. And I often get asked, well, how do we keep referees, or how do we make referees better? How do they flourish? Well, you have two different types of referees, in my opinion, in soccer and football. I keep saying soccer. I hate that word. It's football.
It's okay.
It's football. It's football. They talk football in this country, and you talk about American football, and where I come from, you talk about Gaelic football, and let's talk football. And there are two types of referees at all levels of football. There are the experienced guys that have been there, the hardened diehards who, doesn't matter what a player says to them, they brush it off. They're laughing. I've been there before, whatever, no problem. They're not the guys you have to worry about. The guys you have to worry about are the individuals who are aspiring to be referees and good referees. And I about 6 months ago, I was up in the Northwest in the States, and I got asked that very question. How do we keep these guys and make them good? And the answer's simple. I used an analogy. I've got a young lad who's 18 months old. When he's born, or when any child is born, you don't leave them alone for the first 3 years and let them work it out for themselves. You don't. What you do is you care for them, you nurture them, you teach them. You're there. You're a support. You're their ultimate go-to. And it's the same in refereeing. Those first few years, until they become those die-hard, fast, don't care what people say to them, you've got to make sure that they get through that period. And I think the key to that, and Michael Oliver was the same. I heard he had a support network in his family. He had a very big support network. He had some people to turn to at every, and it's not about asking, well, what should I do in this situation? It's about crying on their shoulder. That's all it is. It's about giving off. It's about, when I was a young referee, I had somebody I phoned up, and we have an old saying back in Ireland, I just read my stomach. I just completely emptied my stomach of all the vitriol that I achieved that day or heard that day. And somebody listened and said, feel better? And I said, yeah. And listen, keep the chin up. Let's move on to the next one, and it'll get easier. And it's the support that young aspiring officials should have. And I really believe that resources, that priority should be pumped into them. You're not going to pump, and it's no slight on them, you're not going to pump resources into your 40, 50-year-old guys who've been doing it for 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Hey, what are you going to get extra from them? These guys know what the lie of the land is. It's the guys that are learning, the sponges. And I feel safe saying it in this environment, even though it's live, we're not millennials. We're not millennials. We have to understand this younger generation, what makes them tick, what gets them enthused, what gets them energized, what gets them and what gives them the staying power. And I think that is support and respect from people who have been there, done it, and can show them that it's not all bad, and that's where I see the future of it. Or if that kind of sums it up, but all the other guys are 100% correct.
Sure, definitely. I know nowadays, as George mentioned, most of the pundits that cover games are very critical of one referee decision, but seem to allow the player to make as many mistakes as they're allowed to throughout the game, and they always fall back on what they deem as the one mistake that the official makes, and kind of people hear that, and that's all they hear, and then they're constantly harping on that one decision, and again they show replays, they go over it and analyze it and break it down, but what type of support or education can be given to those same pundits? Like you said, Sky brought those two in and done that, but there's other ways to kind of, I guess, mitigate a lot of the false information about a referee decision, because now we have the VAR that's being analyzed by a pundit without any education. So you have the guy who has been educated to look at this and determine whether or not it's either a goal, a penalty, or whatever rule it is, where a pundit will say, well, I see it and this is what it should be. And, 9 or 10 times out of 10, they're wrong.
We bought Wally back from the USA just to help Sky out, but they won't let him on live, but they have him watching the game, and they'll go over to him and say, oh, is it a red card? Is it a penalty? And he gives that line. But I remember when Sky started, they imported an old referee, he'd just retired, Neil Midgley. And in the first 2 or 3 weeks, he kept contradicting them and telling them they were wrong in law.
Right.
And so after 2 weeks, they got shot of him because they were so embarrassed.
Right.
And is this the only sport in the world where a manager can go on national TV and go, I've got no idea what the law's about? This is your livelihood, and you're saying you don't know the law.
Yeah.
How can you actually say that? And yet you're taking £1 million a year salary. Hey.
I feel your pain, because there's so many debates, bar debates and after game debates about a decision that was made that possibly had no effect on the game, because players have missed golden opportunities, but no one wants to worry about that. They just want to say it's the referee's fault why we didn't win today, and something needs to be done about the officiating, not the $1 million guy that stands 6 yards out and heads the ball over the bar, because they're not worried about that anymore. But we that's the top end. Now the bottom end is we don't get that second check, we don't get that second look, and that. So how do we assure, even when assessing a game, the official might say, yeah, I know I missed that, or I think I missed that. And as an assessor, how do you kind of translate them into understanding that you're not going to see everything, but how do you respond the next time out? Alan?
Oh, well, these guys are more at the lower level than I'm working currently, but certainly it's not so much the mistake itself. You can't help the mistake. Mistake's done. It's finished. It's past. You can't go back in time.
True.
The question has to be, well, why did you miss it? How did you miss it? And nobody deliberately goes out at the weekend to make a mistake in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all human. But ultimately, we certainly my philosophy would be, and I'm sure the guys will come in on this, is to break down not so much the mistake, but the how do we get it right next time? That's the bottom line. And the referee, you don't learn until you make a mistake.
True.
And that's the bottom. That is the fundamental. And referees, are acutely aware of that. I mean, very rarely you would see a referee who is anyway intelligent about the game make the same mistake twice.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we have to make these mistakes. Sometimes it's not pleasant for the referee involved. That's where the support comes in to make sure they get on the next time. But we have to understand that the mistake, you can't do anything about that mistake. What you can do is make sure that we're in the best possible place through education, through coaching, through being there for them, that they know how not to do that again. And if the guys can chime in on that, that's really my philosophy on it.
Sure, I'm going to ask Paul.
I think it's, I mean, even when you're observing, a lot of the guys understand when they made a mistake. And I think it's essential often that you put the proverbial arm around the shoulder and say, don't worry about it. As Alan said, we all make mistakes, but it's learning from those mistakes and understanding the reason. I hate using the word mistake, to be honest. But you can do things differently and better and understand how you can improve. And I mean, particularly when you're dealing with the youngsters, they're more liable to be a sponge at that age than somebody who's later in life and perhaps not so receptive.
True.
But it's getting the right response from them. And there's no need after the game to beat them with a big stick. You need to encourage and get them to be confident to go to the next game and think about what's happened and how they can constantly improve.
Okay.
But it's being supportive is the main thing.
Right. Definitely. George?
I think, I've just got a good example. Recently, I went to a game just to watch, and there was an observer there. And the referee had a mass confrontation and he dismissed a player from each side quite correctly. And I spoke to him, in the bar afterwards, and we were just talking. And he explained to me that the observer came in and said, "Oh, thought you did this well, did that well, but in the mass confrontation, you were correct to send the 2 players off, but I think you should have sent another one off." But didn't tell him why or anything like that. And he got took. And I said, "Look, I won't get involved in that. But why did the mass confrontation happen?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "Okay, just scroll back in the game. Remember, you did that caution about a minute before, and then you gave a free kick and you didn't give a caution." He said, "Oh, yeah. I said, "Well, that side felt hard done by because you just booked their skipper for what looked like a nothing foul, but he did him for persistent. And then there was a careless challenge, but they wanted a yellow card for it. So they felt he'd got it wrong. And then as the ball got cleared, the centre forward just went piling into the full back and then it all kicked off." And I just said, whether it was a caution or not, sometimes you actually have to balance the game. And he said, "Well, the observer never mentioned that." I said, "Well, I can't comment on that. You asked me a question." So, that's the aspect. You can't, like Alan said, you can't say, "Oh, you got that wrong." And well, even if you did get it wrong, it doesn't matter. How can I help you improve so it doesn't happen again? And that's what we're all about. And I think one of the big problems we had early doors, 20 years ago, was we came in and, we started giving feedback to observers. And I had one gentleman phone me up. He said, "Oh, thank you very much for this feedback." He said, "It's 16 years since I've retired from the Football League. This is the first time anybody's ever phoned me up to tell me what I'm doing right or wrong." So that's where we were back then. Now you're getting feedback quite regularly, and so to me, that's the positive aspect that, the development that Paul and Jeff mentioned is out there for the observers. Have we got it completely right? No, but we're getting there, and Colin's driving it at this level and at the senior level as well. So, yeah.
Sure. Jeff?
Yeah, there's plenty of words there. Alan mentioned the word mistake. Yeah, we only learn by making mistakes, no matter what it is in life, and refereeing is no different. And Paul mentioned a shoulder to lie on. That support mechanism of the young guys who have maybe made an error and it's got to them, but the support mechanism, you're there on a telephone, you maybe can pop down and watch a game with them, put them at ease, to finally ensure that they go out the following week, have the game, listen to what you've said, change the way of doing things, and most importantly, retain these guys, these youngsters, so that they can move on up. Without the support, whatever it was from the county affairs, such as Colin, etc., and even leagues and local FAs, without that support for these youngsters, we cannot possibly retain the number we need to sort of keep going.
Yeah, true. Colin?
Yeah, I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. I think the first thing you've got to do is get the referee to accept they've made a mistake. Right? Because it's so easy to think, we're saying here the mistakes don't matter. No, they don't from their overall development. They matter crucially to that team, and that's why they get the grief, because that's all they're bothered about, the teams, is those mistakes. That's all they see. So I think it does matter, but you need to get the referees, first of all, to understand they've made mistakes. And we've got referees in our county who think they know everything. Right? They don't want to take on any advice. They don't attend training. They just go out and they do it basically for the money. So that's fine, because we need them. That's fine. But those that Alan was talking about that want to progress, they're the key ones. So I think one of the crucial things is at an early stage is you need to get them to do sort of self-analysis of their games, because it doesn't matter how good a game they've had, they could have always done better. And then if they're honest with themselves and they analyse the mistakes, we're talking about mistakes that they've made, then that's when you can go in and you can find the roots out, really. Well, what you're going to do next time. So it's that self-analysing, really, I think, is the crucial part to that. And I said it is getting the referees in the habit of doing that, because it takes a bit of time, but the benefits of that are tremendous, because then they can look back on those games, they can pick out things that they're constantly doing wrong, they can identify their strengths. Only need 2 or 3 things. So I think that's probably one of the key things to work on, really, and I think that's one of the key things that helps them. I mean, I was lucky in my day. We didn't have all these cameras and that when I've run the line for Howard. You get away with murder in those days when I was on the league, but I'm not so sure I'd survive nowadays if I was still doing it. But I mean, the cameras in every angle, you don't get away with anything now. So the guys who are on there now, my utmost respect, really. The amount of mistakes that they make are minimal. They are minimal. But like you say, Al, they're the ones that they flag up. And after all, the media, they've got to sell newspapers, they've got to sell their TV programs. Monday morning when people go to work, they don't want to talk about the good referee. They want to talk about the thing that's cost them that game, because they're looking for that scapegoat. We're the easy target, really, unfortunately.
Sure.
And it all sounds doom and gloom, but it's not really. I mean, we really do enjoy it, and I'm sure every referee that you speak to, the majority of referees enjoy it. They have fun out of it. I mean, in the UK now, there's lots of women's football that comes on telly now. Absolutely brilliant. Completely different mindset. They go out, they get stuck in, they don't take prisoners. Those games need refereeing, but the spectators and they enjoy it. The players, you can see the different sort of atmosphere, really, because I think we've got that at the early stage, and probably Alan, you know more about that, because women's football in the States is much bigger than it is in the UK. But certainly over here, still at the moment, it is a really lovely environment to take your children to. You can go there, there's not bad language, they enjoy it, the spectators enjoy it. And, I think if we can keep that and develop that more and brush off more of that into the male game, even better.
Definitely. Well, gentlemen, I do want to thank you for your time this evening and this afternoon. I have a message from the chairman of refereeing in Bermuda, Mr. Creston Williams. He wanted to say thank you very much for your support of the observers and the assessors of what you guys are doing to help the Bermuda Football Association's referees to progress and grow, because the fact that we can have someone from another place looking at them and giving them advice, I think it only helps to grow together the game of football, because we need officials no matter where we are. You need them to make sure the good of the game of football, Alan, is continuing on, and it's here for a very, very long time. So again, thank you very much, gentlemen. I do appreciate your time. Hopefully, again, you guys can come on and we can discuss even more about the growth of officiating and assessing, and just what those things look like from the other side, which we don't always get, other than the opinions of those commentators who want to criticize. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day and evening.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good night.
okay.
Bye.
Okay. Bye now.